Hello, it's Jack Tutor here of Attention Magazine. Welcome to Crucial Listening, the podcast where I speak with musicians and sound artists about 3 albums that are important to them. My guest this time is Sara Bigdeli Shamloo, who forms one half of the band 90 Antiope with Nima Ariani. They have a new album coming out April 12th on American Dreams. It's called Horror Vacui, and it has a wonderful concept that Sara and I talk about extensively in the first portion of the chat, but I'm just going to read the concept as it appears on the album page here. Picture this. There's a big house at the end of the street. When you walk past it, you can't tell if it's full or empty. It's 2 caretakers who, to add to the uncanniness, wear crimson suits, clean the house, inspect it, and carry out head counts. Sometimes they count only themselves. Sometimes they count hundreds of people. They don't know why this is the case, why the house has so many rooms and stories. It's not their job to know. One day, as you walk past it, a void enters and the house explodes. What happens to what's inside? What impact does it have on your memory? The record has this really reduced palette of sounds, both in terms of textural variety and in terms of how it's deployed in the mix. Like, it's a very sparse album, and Sara's voice has so much room to maneuver. She has this most beautiful poise to her voice and the ability to embody so many different emotions. There is definitely a lot of shape-shifting and kind of like hallucinations, kind of doubting your own perceptions on this record. It's beautiful. These are very much songs as well. The melodies really get lodged in my head. And yet there's also this amorphous uncanniness that runs deep through the record as well, where it lingers with you as a sensation too. Sara picked 3 excellent records, and we got into some super enthusiastic discussions about them, which I really enjoyed. Hope you enjoy this conversation, and if you're enjoying the podcast generally, you can support it over at ko-fi.com/crucial listening, and you can donate monthly or one-off, any amount you please. Thank you very much. So this is Sara Bigdeli Shamloo from 90 Antiope on Crucial Listening.
There's a tree.
Hello, Sara. Welcome to Crucial Listening.
Hi, Jack. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Really happy to have you on the podcast.
Thanks.
We are here to talk about your 3 important albums. Before we get to those, I want to talk about your new album with your group 90 Antiope, Horror Vacui, which is released on American Dreams. So
yes,
I understand that with your full lengths, usually the concept is the first thing to fall into place. Was that the case with this one?
Yeah, actually it was. With Horror Vacui, I mean, there was one level before the concept, which was that Nima and I, after releasing our last album, Placebo, after releasing that, we also had, we kind of had a talk about how we're gonna attack this one. We talked about how we wanted to be a little bit more instrumental. We talked about also coming from like a personal space. We talked about the concept of letting loose a little bit more, because in Placebo, like, I believe conceptually and emotionally, I tried to put in all that I had. I think all the anger is out in Placebo, all the fear is out. And in Horror Vacui, I was just, or Horror Vacui, I might say both, I might use both pronunciations. I was a little bit fed up with life, with everything, with writing, fed up in a sense that I didn't want to go back to the darkness, but you can never let go of it completely. But I kind of wanted to let loose a bit and discover something new, a little bit more energy, a little bit more just letting go. So we had this talk, but then actually the first track, like how it all started, not the first track as in the album's first track, but the first time we started like doing something was with Nima just bringing out his octave mandolin and starting on it, and then me joining him. That's the initial point, actually.
Cool. I mean, the concept is so rich, and obviously threw up a bunch of stuff just reading about it, but also hearing it enacted in the context of the record. Yeah, I'll detail the concept in the intro of the discussion,
That's
as
lovely.
it appears on the album release page. But what was your way into the concept? Because, yeah, like I say, there's so much to kind of like unpick there. I mean, from someone on the outside, it threw up loads of stuff about the fallibility of memory and maybe how that feeds into how one would perceive themselves if they couldn't trust their past experiences. The whole thing about vacuums, obviously, and negative spaces, there's loads there. So what was the way into this concept for you? Like, what was the kind of germinating stuff?
As with a lot of our work with Nima together, and as with a lot of my writing, normally everything starts with a little bit of world building. That's what I do. I love writing stories in general, other than just like writing lyrics and songs. I love like creating stories. So with Horror Vacui, the idea of a negative space, as it is with loss, as it is with losing someone and death, it's a kind of it's the kind of experience that you have when you lose someone, and with the experiences that I've had with the death of my like close family members throughout the years. I was just unlucky this happened. I don't know. I'd lost 2 brothers, and then my mother. I lost her before making Horror Vacui. And so this experience of being in a space surrounded by things, surrounded by positive like spaces, filled spaces, and then the negative spaces in the room, the things that are empty are also not empty in a sense. Like you feel a heaviness that might not exist in the physical world, or might not exist in front of your eyes. So this is what I feel like when I talk about loss, and because loss is, to me, is not losing, but it's adding something that's not there to your space, or even to your headspace. Something that's lost is not gone in a sense. Memories try to fill that space, and imagine if you just sometimes even lose touch with your memories, then that sense of everything like slipping away from your fingers is a very scary feeling. Like people that might have lost someone can maybe relate to this, that at some point you sometimes sit down and you think, do I remember the faces? Like, do I remember the voice? I don't know. It's kind of I call it a game. It's not a game. It's like, it's a thing that people do to themselves, including myself. And you ask yourself, like, is the person still there? If they're not there physically, then are they there in my memory? And also you start to find gaps in your memory, which is very, I think, natural. But this to me is very scary. And then you kind of feel like, also like being in traumatic experiences one after the other, your brain, like my brain, my coping mechanism is to erase sometimes. I think like people will find this, people who dissociate with when they come to a traumatic experience, they might have gone through this, that you forget, like your brain tries to take care of you, so it like erases some stuff. And so with this, I always have this fear of losing the smallest things that that is like, exists in my mind. I've fear of losing those. So this is where the concept of dementia came in, the concept of void came in for me, and all of this together. I've read about this concept in visual arts, horror vacui, as you say it, fear of empty space. It's a Latin word actually, so it's horror vacui, or it's called kenophobia, the fear of empty spaces. So I've read about this somewhere, and I've also read about the fact that this also exists in Iranian paintings that we call negargari, and you see, like in visual arts, you just fill all the spaces with a lot of material and a lot of detail. So this all came together, and it came into the concept of horror vacui. But then my storyteller brain kept imagining this house, which is the house in the album, as I called the house that exists on the end of Mount 22 Street. And then I saw Nima and I in it. I mean, basically, so I saw these two characters of caretakers who are taking care of the house, and they're wearing crimson suits. They've been doing this for generations and stuff. And so you would recognize them in their suits and in their crimson colored togetherness. And they take care of this house, and they like clean it. They do head counts, because sometimes they count like 2 people, sometimes they count 100. So this is where the basic idea came in, and then I started world building. So the world came to be a very normal street, by the end of which we can see this house and the people that live in it or don't, basically, because the house is like from one side you look at it. This is the whole story. Like, people that walk in front of, like, walk through the street, see that the house from one side looks completely full and the lights are on, and it's as if like hundreds of people are living in it, like 100 people are living in it, basically. And from the other side, it looks completely empty, filled with void, and like abandoned. So this was my whole visual thing.
So cool. And leads in as well, I think, so nicely to like the sonic terrain of the album. I mean, so much of what you've just talked about is now feeding into how I relate to that sonic aspect of the record, but it's like a very reduced palette, right, of sounds. And actually it feels, when you're listening to it, I know there are other elements as well, but just a record for strings and voice, for the most of it, variously treated strings, and you just get this sense of almost like wood and creaking doors, and it's a really, really, really like vivid texture that the record has. So I wondered whether, like, how this concept led into ending up with such a reduced instrument palette. I mean, I think there are some obvious lines we could draw, given your discussion of, say, negative spaces and absence. There's like a lot of empty space on this record that, of which you occupy some, but still like loads left. How did the concept inform, or what were the discussions like surrounding, like, okay, this is going to be our instrument palette? How did it end up being so reduced?
Yeah, I mean, as you say, I mean, conceptually it went into, we do want to create a big space, as we do and as we like when we do like electronic parts of the music. It's great for creating those like atmospheres and soundscapes, and in that sense we already had what we needed. But for the other part, it was, from the beginning, it was going to be a very narrative album. This is, I think, one of the not the first album. We have like Grimace, which is also song based, but this is, after so many albums, this was the one that we went, this is going to be songs one after the other. It's not going to be like Placebo or Nocebo, where it's like 2 tracks of 20 minutes or 25 minutes or something. So in regards to that, then we really needed to create songs, and these songs were supposed to sometimes narrate the stories of different rooms in this house, or also like different corridors. So that's why then it turned into like whatever that it is. And also we had this talk with Nima that we wanted to be more instrumental. We want to sit down together and create again with instruments, something that by instruments I mean like string instruments. In the previous albums it was all like synthesizers, and it was more like working with machines. And in this one we kind of we wanted to be intimate, and we wanted it to feel that way, and also we wanted that sense of letting loose that I told you about before. We wanted that to be conveyed somehow. So I think instruments and acoustics kind of do a better job in that sense, at least to us, or the way we work. So that's why it turned out to be what it is. And it's also, I don't know, it's I love Americanas for some reason. It's not something I listen to every day, but when I do, it kind of touches me in a very specific way. So I'm not saying that we wanted this album to look like an Americana, but the way that I kind of dived into writing the songs had something of similarity in a sense. And for example, you can say that in the first track in Shapeshift. I think that notion and that soul exists in it, and a lot of these were brought out by the instruments, by the octave mandolin or by the octave violin that Nima, played. So they tend to be more melodic and more, the way they are in this album.
And did that inform how you approached voice? Because you take on, as you normally do, but so many different forms on this record, and I freaking love it. Like I think the way that your voice manifests on this album is just perfect.
Thank you so much.
How did you think about how to approach your voice, given that it is as you say, you had a lot of discussions around, what you wanted the textural palette to be. It's a very deliberate decision made, and you end up with a very deliberate sounding record sonically. How did that affect how you approached your voice?
First of all, thank you. I'm so glad to hear that. Second of all, we did have the discussion. With Nima and I, when we work together, basically, weirdly, we talk about a lot about colors. And we refer, somehow this translates perfectly between us, because for example, if we talk about, when I say like this has a lot of reds in it and this has glimmers of yellow, then we basically both understand what we're saying and we see the same thing for some reason. I don't know how. So this also always affects the way, of course, he delves into his sound design and his choice of colors and everything in sound. And for me as well, this kind of this affects the way I look at vocals. There are some tracks, or there are some older works that I tend to use my vocals more as an instrument, in a sense that I choose different textures. I try to create different textures and try to find replies to what the music is asking. I don't know. But in this one, I also wanted it to be less thought. In a way, I wanted to be a song, so I had less control over. I felt less controlling, actually, because I am very controlling of the way I use vocals. I sometimes over micromanage every piece of it. But this time I wanted to be more intimate. I wanted to feel more authentic, and in a sense, I just imagined I'm sitting on the balcony and I'm singing this song about, I'm telling the story. So that's how it got to be where it is. That's how, for example, in the first track, Shapeshift, as I'm saying, no more feelings, no more kneeling. This is a very genuine feeling and a very genuine space I'm coming from. So I think that also had an effect on the way the vocals sound.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
I could ask an abundance of questions on this record alone. We are going to talk about some other records as well, but
with pleasure.
Please go check it out. I will put links in the show notes. It's such a glorious record. And just quickly, Sara, did you want to add, I don't know if you got anything coming up that you wanted to mention here alongside the album?
No, it's just that the album is coming out on April 12th on American Dreams. It's been long in coming. It took a lot of time. I love the album myself, if I can say so. I feel very connected to it. And we have a couple of shows afterwards. I hopefully we can bring this piece to stages live soon. I can't, give a precise date right now, but we'll see it somewhere, hopefully.
Wicked. Okay, great. Thank you. So we should go to your important records now. And one question I'd like to ask at this point is how you thought about the word important when picking your list of 3 records. So was there a way you understood the word important in order to come up with the 3 records that you did?
Actually, to me, the definition came from the fact that which were the pieces that had the most influence on me and had the most immediate effect. Like, I remember all like these 3 albums that I chose, and also, but by the way, they're the choices of Nima and I together, and we've listened to all of these together, basically, and I just asked them before, and we both agree on these 3.
Oh, amazing! Wow, that's so cool.
So since we had like this experience together, we both also kind of share the same experience of absolutely remembering what it did to our bodies, what it felt like, and how it affected, like how it stayed in our mind and how it let us bring out whatever that we had in mind. These 3 were kind of like an affirmation into saying what you have in mind and what you like and what you think you want to put out, you can.
Yes. Great. Which one did you want to go for first?
I think I would go with Scott Walker and Sunn, the album Soused. It's a beautiful album. All in all, have you heard it?
This is so weird, Sara. So, very briefly, I was a big Scott fan and a big Sunn fan, and then I remember this record coming out and being like, "This has got to be a joke." And then it wasn't, and I listened to the record and I enjoyed it, but so I haven't really listened to it since it came out until 2 weeks ago. My friend mentioned it to me, and I've had an extended conversational back and forth with a friend about our feelings about this record. And 2 days before I knew that you'd picked it, I'd listened to it in the car on a dark ride home for the first time in like 8 years. So this was a kind of
what a coincidence,
spooky pick. Yeah, so I have heard it. I would love to hear a bit about what like a little introduction as to what makes this one an important record for you.
I remember first hearing this album in Siavash Amini's house, a fellow musician and friend with whom we've created the album Harmistis together. I remember Nima and I had gone to Tehran for a short trip a few years ago, and then we were sitting with Siavash, and we always had this like sessions of listening to stuff together, and he just said, "You have to listen to this." I've heard the Sunn before, but I didn't actually know Scott Walker. I hadn't heard of him ever. And so he was like, and then he went into telling us, he used to be like a pop star, and then he changed throughout the 90s, like he changed his way, then he became more like avant-garde and experimental and stuff. And the first time I heard this out, like it blew my mind. At that time, I remember like feeling sick in a sense of not being able to actually let go of the album. We listened to it on repeat. We just talked about it. Talked about all of its like every piece of it, and then that's where I came to like Scott Walker, and then I went on and I just checked all of his discography out, and I read about him and everything. The way he does, like the way he narrates, the way he sings, the way the textures and the colors and the instruments and the vocals just talk to each other, and the way they tell these stories, I find it as like a familiar space. I don't know why, like it's very much of my taste, first of all, listening. And at the time it was more so like back then I used to listen to it more even than I do listen to it now.
Right.
So that's it. Like I remember it shook me. That's why I call it important, and that's the way the vocals are like layered on top of the music, and the way the stories are being told is what made this album important for me.
and maybe you've just answered this, but you talk about these important records as kind of like affirming your own inclinations, being like, it's cool to like this stuff. What did that look like with this record? Is it the storytelling, as you were saying?
It's not just that, it's also like the aspect of it being so dramatic. I studied theatre directing and acting in Tehran University, as a musician basically, but I love drama. I love narrating. I love reading and narrating tragedies, and I find it the utmost, the element of catharsis that you search in a tragedy is the exact same thing that I look for in an album when I listen to it from start to end. So I found like the way it's very dramatic, but still it uses different palettes of sound and different textures and everything. That's where it hit me, basically. It's so fearless and it's so courageous, I find it. And at the same time, it's not cheesy. Doesn't make you cringe. It's just beautiful poetry, very tragic, very dramatic. And that's where I was, okay, so the drama that I like to convey in storytelling, it can exist in this sense. It can exist in this size. And so Scott Walker for me became, I had this dream of, because I think he lived in Paris right until he passed away a few years ago, unfortunately. And I always had this dream of like meeting him and like going to see him somewhere in Paris and just say hi and say how much I like love his music. But then he passed away. I never got a chance to do that. But it's that. It's basically the drama, I believe.
Nice. Because, like I say, it had been so long since I heard this record. So when I was speaking to my friend, I was like, kind of relaying what I thought of it. And obviously little bits of it get lodged in your head. So for me, obviously the drone, the wielding of Sunn as just like a core element of the texture of this album lodged in my head. The bull whips lodged in my head. And I think they're the main elements. I wondered if they were like, are there particular tracks or like elements of this album that are like really protrusive and impactful for you specifically? It's to put it in words, I think it's a concept of like finding darkness in light and finding light in darkness. And this is something that is very well done, I think, throughout all the tracks. I remember the first, like, the thing that like shook me to my bones was the track Herod. She's hidden her babies away, and the poetry, the way he just sings the lyrics and everything was something that like stuck in my mind, and I just can't let go of it. And this track basically does that, finding light in darkness and darkness in light, does that very well, in my opinion. Now that a few days ago I got back to listen to the album again, because I remember I listened to it on repeat for a long time. I mean, like for like 2 years, let's say. And then it suddenly felt heavy. And then, and as time went by and as I was coming out of the space that I was at the time, coming out of it a little bit more, as I come out of that space a little bit more, and now I think I'm completely out of that headspace, I find it more difficult to listen to. But like my favorite track has changed, because I was in love with Herod, and now that I checked it out and I listened to the whole album again, I found out that my favorite track is now, I think, Fetish. Right.
Because of the pace. Fetish now gives this track Fetish now gives me this, it's a little bit like it has some rhythms in it. It gets a little bit more pacey, and I think my body at this point, this is what my body needs. Like this, it needs an outlet, I think. And this track gives me that outlet. I'm like shooting it more externally rather than internally that I was doing before. So so obviously this has changed. I'm still listening to the album. I still love it. But the way that I look at it is different. Right now, Fetish gives me more excitement and more contentment.
That's very cool. I think it was is it Lullaby, the one with like the stones kind of clacking together? Oh, God, or is that Fetish?
With Fetish?
I can't remember which one it is. There's one with like it's almost like a loop of like stones clacking together throughout.
But might be. I don't. I don't remember it in that detail.
Right.
I do remember Herod because I just listened to it for years and years and years. Ho ho, what a name! Ho ho, what a name! Like this never leaves my brain. But yeah, Fetish is my new pick, so I still have some time to spend with it.
That's great. And you went back into Scott's discography as well.
Yeah.
I found this interesting because coming from, so I got into his stuff through The Drift, and then was very much like jumping around when Bish Bosh got announced, and you know, super excited for that, and that felt so expansive sonically, and there was a lot of like sounds leaping out of the dark at you, and with Soused it's more reduced than Bish Bosh, and like I've seen Scott talk about this as kind of like an exercise in reduction for him, so it's a very deliberate move, but I think I found that hard to adjust to coming out of Bish Bosh and being like, it feels like anything could happen. And with Soused, there's like a recurring nightmare element where it's there's the drone keeps coming back, so there's that kind of like real compounded weight that happens. But what was it like going the other direction, like this being a starting point and then going back into Scott's work?
Yeah, I mean, I can't help it, but like since it was the first thing that I heard from him, and then so this was my high point already. I was like, okay, this is the masterpiece, and then I'll go and study the rest. So basically, I listened to I regarded everything else as lesser. So I went in with that mentality. So it was like, okay, this is the masterpiece. Let's see what else is out there. And so I kind of studied it mostly, rather than diving into them, like sitting down listening to them in the same way that I listened to Soused. Going the other way around, it was more helpful in a sense to find the same elements or the same, points. You can see the references, you can see the background. When you go back and listen to the rest, you're like, something was boiling underneath that, when you're listening to the pop songs, even you can feel there's something on top of it, there's something underneath it. Totally. You can feel something wants to come out, and it's easier to see it that way than to see it the other way. But I believe if someone is like a Scott Walker fan when they were a young person, now if they listen to Soused, they will be like, what the actual what just happened?
Yes. Yeah.
I can totally understand that, but for me, the rest, I looked at everything else as an exercise to get to this point.
Oh,
you know what I'm saying? It felt like that.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. I think it's because it's similar to me, especially when looking at his early albums, where it's like, you can't help but hear it in the context of, because also the voice is there, isn't it, right? You get context for the voice. You're like, oh, that's why you've got this kind of opulent singing style at the center, because otherwise it's difficult to make sense of where has this person come from who sings like that?
yeah, exactly. Where's all this drama coming from?
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. It gives you
dramatic.
The context. So dramatic. And you mentioned it's not cheesy, and I wonder if this is something that kind of is present within your experience as well. But I find that he is humorous in a way that almost feels like it generates an immunity to accusations of being too overwrought, because it's like there are points where he does something ridiculous and also does a kind of joke as well. And so he's like, I know this is kind of
I know
over the top too, right?
I think the dramatic people who are also smart, they know when they're overboard. They know it can be cheesy, and they know like it needs its own space to be perceived the way they want it to be perceived. So yeah, you're actually right. I think humor does add that extra level of immunity to it. So yeah, that's why I do not find it cheesy at all. I think he's very much aware of what he's doing.
Yeah. And with Sunn as well. So what was your connection like with, you said you had listened to Sunn prior to coming into this record. So what was your connection like with them when coming into Soused? Yeah,
with Sunn, I've heard like one or two like tracks of them before, like obviously through the people that I knew and through other musicians. I really liked them. I was never a big drone fan, to be very honest. I liked it. I love watching it live, and I think that's where it hits me, and that's where I mostly relate to it, when it's live. So with the Sunn, it was the same. I liked it the way it was hardcore. That's what like I related to, the hardcoreness and the audacity and all that. But I had never delved into all of like the discography and everything. So when I heard this, then I was like, wow, that's so intelligent, and that's so well fitting, and they're geniuses for going to Scott Walker and doing this with him, and like my level of respect just went up. Yeah.
Bed in the dark without interruption. He imagines he feels it tugging and clenching. Is it rustling and rising? The naked intaglio lifting free of its flesh, silently prowling from window to window.
Okay, Sara, shall we go to your second
For sure.
album now? So which one do you want to go for now?
I would like to go to Ben Frost, the Wasp Factory. Oh, this is my ultimate favorite. I think I've just named this album. Like, every time someone asks me, I'm like, this one, go listen to it.
That's great.
That's why I didn't want to do it first. I was like, yeah, let's do it second.
Yeah, we need to build to it.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Give me a little introduction as to why this one's important to you.
Oh my god, it's the epitome of everything that I want an album to be. It's super dramatic. It's an opera. It's basically a performance, an opera performance that he created with a bunch of other musicians. Because of course, like, he did the sound design and the production and everything, but there is this element of orchestral elements and strings and operatic singing and librettos and everything. So other people are in it as well. The first time that I heard this album, we heard it together with Nima. I remember we were in our old house, like in Paris, and we just put it on. I think I was like doing the dishes or something like very mundane. And then I stopped in my tracks and I was like, wow, what are they talking about? And what are they trying to say? And so I listened to it like 5 more times. First of all, like the music, the everything about it, the sound design, the colors and everything was beautiful to me, to my ears. And then the story was like it was like, pulling me in. And I just wanted to know more. And then we like searched into it. I was like, oh, okay, so it makes sense. It's a performance. It's an opera. I wish I could have seen it live. I wish I could. I still wish it like goes back on stage sometime, so I can just go back and go and see it live and sync every single piece with it. That would be so annoying. Imagine. And yeah, I listened to it. I kind of had my own thing about it. I had my guesses because I hadn't read the book as well. And it pushed me to, like, I really wanted to know the whole story. So I got the book from, which is Wasp Factory by Yane Banks. And oh my God, the book was beautiful. I loved the book. And then it like all made sense to me. And then I got more interested in the way the book was translated into songs and into lyrics and into librettos. And that's, this was the exact same way that I would approach writing songs. I write the whole story, I build the world, and then I extract from it. So this was, that path in front of me, done by other people, so that I could really look at it from the outside. And this just gave me so much joy, basically.
Wow.
Yeah.
You've already outlined a lot there. I mean, the drama is... Yeah, it's
so dramatic. It's so dramatic.
It's so dramatic.
Yes.
I mean, I think, again, this is another really interesting one. I feel like you and I are on kind of opposing pathways through time, because I read the book like when I was about 15 and haven't touched it since, and then this is the only time I've revisited the story, and gosh, it is crazy to hear it in
Isn't it?
rendered in this way. It's
yeah.
wow. What is it, do you think, about the way that the players have approached rendering this story that is, I don't know, that really gets you? Because this is, as you said, this is like your favorite pick.
Yeah.
How have they done that? How have they got like a connection with you at your core?
Wow, again, it's not cheesy.
For sure.
It's not at all a cheesy album. And the way they've approached drama and the way they've approached singing and performing, you can of course hear the performance in their in their voices and the way they attack it, the way they convey the character, and because it's like the protagonist, and then there are 3 singers on stage, apparently, as I've heard and read about it, and you can hear them. So the way the characters come in, the way they go on top of the music, the way also the music narrates the story and then goes into, those sound designs of Ben Frost and 2 heavy parts and pulled voices and processed, texts in the middle. That to me is like a perfect combination of all of it together. And it is narrating the story. The story is well told. Like if you don't read the book, even, and you just listen to the whole album, there's a start, there's a high point, there's a down point, there's an end. It's all there. You don't need anything more from it. It's very complete. It's very thorough. And that's a very difficult thing to do. Getting text and turning it into lyrics and turning it into songs. Like just putting them on top of music. It's a very difficult process.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of respect for that. And I feel it, and it never bores me. I've never stopped listening to this album. Never ever. I still do. Like this is probably the first thing that I listen to. Like when I sit in a train, it's my starting point. Sometimes I don't listen to it because I don't want to look crazy to myself. Yeah, so I just love it. I love it. It's a beautiful story told in a very beautiful, gorgeous way.
Oh man, I wanted to ask you one specific detail about the story, because I have the vague memories of the book, and then there are certain kind of decisions that are made through this version of it where I'm like, I get this impression about this character, but I wonder if that's license taken by the adaptation rather than true, being present within the original material. So the father in this version is like frightening in the sense that it's a very like peripheral presence, and I found myself thinking about it a lot. It kind of scared me a bit. There's a bit in the middle where you hear them voicing the father saying Frank, and then there's that sudden kind of like rise in volume, and he's like, what does father want now? And then it just cuts. It's very unsettling, but that's just kind of the father isn't voiced that much throughout the story.
Yeah.
Is that kind of how it is in the book? I don't know if you can remember, but
I do. The father is very present in the book, but at the same time, as you say, it's like a very peripheral. Is that the word you used? Yeah. It is the same way. I remember it the same way in the book as well, right? Because the world of the protagonist, the boy, is such an internal presence. He is in his world all the time. He's just like planning and plotting and talking to himself and doing things. He's very much in his thing. So yeah, the father is present in a sense that he's always at home when they're together. And then at the end of the story, I don't want to spoil it, but at the end of the story, like you kind of realize what kind of, how influential the father has been for the story. But still, because the boy like keeps a lot to himself, he's just always with himself. He's alone with himself. So this is what has been, I think it has been portrayed well in the album. The first time that I listened to it, I didn't know the character that was reading was the father. I saw it as like the figure, as like the headmaster figure.
Right.
In my head, it felt like that. It was like, yeah, Diggs was just here and just telling all the stories, and I've seen you've washed your hands again. It felt like that figure to me. But I don't think it's much of a problem. I don't find it as problematic or something that would interrupt the way the narration goes.
Yeah.
Because of the world of the protagonist. As
you say, there's so much emphasis on like the internal world of, you know, the narrator. It's voiced. I think, I don't know if he's voiced by a consistent voice throughout, but there's definitely like the sense that there's a dialogue going on, right, within Frank, and you know, this voicing of multiple perspectives within one. Like, I feel like, and maybe I'm drawing a tenuous line, we'll find out, but there's something that I often receive within, you know, your approach to voice. There's like an embodiment of different characters a lot, but sometimes like an ambiguity over whether it's you or whether you've slipped into sort of like
I love that
different persona, and I wondered whether that was like a point of resonance within Wasp Factory for you.
I think it must be. I mean, now that you're saying it, first of all, thank you. I take that as a compliment.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that exists in that as well. I do that as well. I would love to be able to do that. And in Horror Vacuum, I think there are parts where absolutely, even if I mean, the way I also used Farsi words in the album for the first time, like this time, that also had to do, I think I imagined a different character when I was doing that. Although it was still the character of the caretakers of the house, like the two. But as I say, there's like something eerie about this whole thing. So the characters are probably not just one persona and one person and one like, how do you say it? Not identity, entity. That's what I wanted to say. So yeah, I felt that must have been something that caught my attention in this album as well. Must have been.
I wondered if this is maybe a cruel question, if it's your favorite thing, because I imagine the whole thing is just I mean, it is one singular experience, right? But I mean, like I say, there's within this initial acquaintance of mine, there are elements that really jut out. I think the phone call with the brother, where he's incredulous about eating party-sized bags of crisps.
That's my favorite part of that. I love that.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay.
Yes. It's like I'm in Glasgow, and then he starts like laughing at him. It's like, why should I eat chips? Like, are you crazy when I can eat dogs? Why should I be going to supermarkets and I'm eating chips? What the it's amazing. It's the best. Yeah, so please go on.
I was going to say, did you have like elements of it that were your favorites as well? But yeah, sounds like we...
Do you like that? Yeah, that's your favorite part? Yeah.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
It's so good. Yeah.
It's so good. Beautiful. And also there's this thing that he keeps saying in one of the songs where it's like he's talking about patterns. It says like, all our lives are symbols. Everything we do is part of a pattern. The strong makes their own patterns and influence other people's. The weak, the unlucky, and the stupid. This is also like it's amazing because this is the embodiment of the character.
Yes.
It just says everything about him. How he hates weakness. How he approaches, how he thinks about women as a weakness, and how his relationship with the sea is such a, because the sea is like overpowering him all the time, and it's just beautifully put in these words.
Yes.
I find it a very crucial point.
Absolutely. Yeah, because I think it feels like it gives context to when he's describing some of the murders. You're like, okay, this is that kind of methodology being played out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm glad you've listened. Yeah.
I'm very glad. Well, actually, that was... So we're discussing this one at an interesting time because Ben Frost literally has a new album out, like...
I haven't heard it. I still haven't had the time to listen. I really like everything he does. Yeah, normally there's nothing bad I can tell about any of his work. It's very compelling, very... I've never seen him live, though. That's a pity.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. The timing was never right. Hopefully somewhere I get to catch him live.
I'm doing fine. I eat dogs. Oh God, you're not really all you. Of course. What else can I eat? When I get near a town, I look for a good, fat, juicy dog. And then I make friends with it. And then I take it out to the woods. And then I kill it and eat it. What could be simpler? I do love the outdoor life. But you are cooking them, aren't you?
Sara, should we go to your final important record now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, wicked. So, if you'd like to give me the name of your final important record and a little bit about why it's important to you, that would be fabulous.
The final album is Bonita by Sidsel Endresen and Stian Westerhus. I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly. Norwegian singer Sidsel Endresen. She's an amazing jazz singer who also like changed path into more avant-garde music. She's an amazing composer and performer. And Stian Westerhus, who's become I keep saying like he's my spirit animal. I just love this guy. He's amazing. He's such a character, such a presence. I've had the chance of seeing them live and actually had the chance to see Bonita live. Also like to say hi to them and just it was amazing. Bonita. So what happened was this. Why is this my favorite? Well, like my number 3 pick, and our number 3 pick actually with Nima. I remember. I think maybe it was like in 2015 or something. We were in Germany with a couple of friends with whom we used to have an improvisation band, and one of them is a percussionist, an electronic musician. So he told us that he had seen something live, which was Sidsel Endresen and Stian Westerhus. He'd seen them live and he just lost his mind. So he played some parts live from YouTube. Like some of the recording was on YouTube. And again, it blew my mind. What blew my mind was the performance of both of them. It's very much improvisational based. And Sidsel Endresen, what a compelling vocalist. Amazing. The way she has just passed the borders of what a vocalist is, what storytelling in music is, how narration, like how the different ways of narrating. She's just broken all of those borders, I think, and now she's past it. Like she's in another realm. The way she uses her vocals like the ultimate instrument, the way she turns it into a synthesizer, the way she processes it with her own body, is a very, very is an amazing experience to see and to hear. She's gone beyond the point of you listen to this album and she is telling a story. You can absolutely hear it. You can absolutely pick up different like pieces and characters and emotions, and she's just reduced all of that and taken all of the unnecessary parts and just turned it into what it is. I love like literature. I love words. I love hearing stories. But at the same time, I don't miss any of that when I'm hearing this album. No. It's doing all the same thing without the words and without anything that might be deemed unnecessary in this case. And that to me is it's amazing. I just find it amazing. And then Stian Westerhus, the way he does exactly the same with his guitar and his electronic instruments, and the way they just talk to each other with these instruments, and the way they negotiate. I discuss everything, and you can also see this live on stage. And the funny thing is, like when they come on stage, I mean, Sidsel is already such a character, such a presence, and you can feel it. She's a very strong, powerful woman on stage as well. And then Stian Westerhus, like he comes on, he's like this little boy, he's and then he just picks up the instrument and he becomes a monster. And that, like you can see it, like he just gets huge. He just picks his instrument and his like bow and all of his other things, and he just goes big, and it's an experience to see this, the people who come on stage and they're tiny, and then when they start doing themselves, it suddenly seems like they're humongous. I find this a very I love experiencing this, and I love seeing this.
It's so interesting you've seen it live, because I spent a lot of time when I was listening to the album today trying to work out whether Stian was overdubbing or it's really ambiguous. It could be all one take or it could be overdub. I mean, what's your impression?
What I've saw, I mean, from what I've seen, when you listen to the album, it's one of those things. I think it's very much improvised and stuff, but still, when you see it live and you've heard the album before, you can they perform the album. Right, I don't know how they do it, but they do. in different ways, but you can absolutely pick up like when they've changed a track, or in my case, if I like one track, then you hear it live on stage and it's there. Like you can still, if you check it out on like YouTube, if you check out the videos, if there is any of it, you can see this. It's very strong how they've managed to do this. Very powerful. I don't know how they do it, but it happens. It's weird. It's one of those things like, I don't know if everyone who likes live performance and likes to be on stage, as I do, I love the stage. I don't know if everyone experiences this, but there are some points in life where you see stuff on stage and you want to be part of it. You envy being there on stage and you envy doing that.
Yeah.
This to me is a very good signal. Like sometimes I listen to something and I'm like, I wish I had made that.
Yes.
Not that I just wish I had created that. It feels so close and it feels so in tune with where you are. And so this performance as well was one of those things that I like cried all like through it, and I was like, I had that feeling in me, wanted me, you know how watching live performances moves you, how dancers like make your inner dancer dance. This was one of those things that I just physically wanted to move me and get me up my feet and take me to stage. I don't know what that means, but something, it moved me also physically.
I love it. So with these albums you mentioned that they kind of like affirmed something within you that you feel compelled towards. Again, it feels like that, I mean, this is the case with everything, but there's a nebulous quality to it where you just like, I just know that I connect with it and it moves me. But what do you think it is with this record that kind of gave you the thumbs up as to your own inclinations and said, yes, you're on the right track?
Oh my God. With this particular album with Bonita?
Yeah.
I have to be honest, I think it's the presence of Sidsel Endresen, and I think it's her performance. I think it's her courageous utilization of voice. She doesn't want to make it just sound pretty. She does sometimes, like she sings beautifully and you hear this like Norwegian female singer narrating telling a tale, and you connect with that in the same way, and then she just turns it into this, like, she crunches it, she crumbles it, she makes it ugly, she makes it noisy, she's not afraid to do any of that. She just, that's why I'm saying she's beyond all of these. She's beyond sounding beautiful. She's a jazz singer. She can, I'm sure she can sing whatever she wants and make like all of our hairs like stand straight. But she does it in a different manner. She's beyond that now, and she uses her voice as an instrument and does whatever she wants with it, bends it exactly the same way Stian bends his bows and like does stuff to his guitar. I think it's her performance, basically, because Stian, until I saw them live on stage, I wasn't capable of comprehending like his presence or what he was contributing to it.
Yes.
Also, I'm a very vocal oriented person. Like when I listen, Nima's not the same way. When I listen to something, I hear the lyrics first and I hear the voice first, and it sticks in my mind. Nima doesn't hear the vocals, like he basically mostly hears the music and that, so of course I listen to Sidsel first. I prioritize that. In my brain does that. I don't do it by on purpose. And so I think it's that, if I have answered your question.
Nice. Yeah, absolutely you have.
Great.
So I wondered if you had a favorite track as well. There's one that I kept looking at anytime I was listening to this album, my ears would prick up at the same point, and it would always be during, is it called White Mantilla, which has some of the most kind of aggressive points of the record, but also a swathe of real reduced quiet, which is quite an astonishing thing. But do you have like a favorite track?
Weirdly, Bonita is one of those albums you can't really say like sometimes you can't even differentiate tracks. It's one of those albums that is like a whole thing on its own. You can just listen to it from start to finish and not feel change, although it's like changing all the time, but also because that happens in each track multiple times, then it's more difficult to say. I love the first I love the opening track, Bonita. I love it, and the ending. It's because of the performance, because of the way I don't know. It just sticks in my in my mind. So I don't know what the name of the last track is. Is it Blue Punch? I don't remember.
Yes, I think it is Blue Punch.
It is. The pink link is also, now that I see it on I'm looking at the whole thing. The Blue Punch, Bonita, and the pink link.
Nice.
Yes.
Yeah. The very end is incredible.
It's amazing.
The last 2 seconds where you just get a little bit of feedback, and then it's almost like you stop mid-sentence. Like we could go on, but we're not.
Yeah. It's great. I'm glad you like it too.
Beautiful. Did you have any other thoughts that you wanted to get out about Bonita before I move to my last question?
I don't think so. I just hope people, like everyone who's listening to this, like checks it out and listens to it. It's an experience on its own, you know. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Just be blown away by what they do.
Pirichidas, Piridas, no, Tas, Pirichidas, Shala, a lot of ha, this feeding.
Sara, I have one more question to you, and it relates more to how music comes into your life generally. So I'm talking like formats. Do you have any formats you prefer? Places where you tend to go to listen to music, where you buy music? What does that look like for you?
I think music is the core point of both of our lives, Nima and I. It's everywhere in our lives. We listen to music when we get up from morning to night. We listen to a lot of stuff. We're not bound to like specific genres. We do have preferences, of course we do, but we also tend to check everything out and find a lot of different things to like about different stuff. Whether it's like even like a pop album and we just love the production or love the sound design, or it's hardcore like techno sometimes, and then you just relate to the rhythm and I don't know, stuff like that. So we do listen to a lot of stuff and we do find a lot of new things. Then we get in the car, we listen to the radio a lot as well. I discover a lot of beautiful things on the radio and I just constantly check everything out. Then we listen to music when we go to our like friends' places. It's constant, actually.
Wicked.
We have silence when we're creating. We do have silence, but even then, I mean, it's everywhere. I listen to music anywhere that I can. I listen to it on Bandcamp. I listen to it on streaming services, on YouTube, on anywhere. I support it through various formats. I still buy like CDs, and mostly CDs. I like vinyls as well, but I don't collect them necessarily. But I do still buy a lot of CDs. I love CDs. I just wish it comes back the way I just want it to be everywhere. Yeah, it's the perfect format.
In every sense, by every variable, it's the best.
Yes, the quality is the best. Quality-wise, it's the best. Nothing is cut off because tape is cute. It's nice. We have released on tape as well, but there's a lot of frequency. You lose a lot of quality. Vinyl has its own characters. It's expensive. It's a little bit wasteful. We have also released on vinyl and it's beautiful. I love the format. It's huge. It's gorgeous. But still, like, CDs are everything. It's the perfect format. It's square. You have enough space for the artwork. You have enough space for everything. The quality is top notch. I mean, what's there not to love?
Yeah, right. Don't have to cut tracks in two to spread over like two sides of the vinyl or anything. It's got it all.
Exactly. It's got it all. It's amazing. CDs should be the thing again, like forever.
We can keep hoping. Like I feel like there is, especially since the kind of vinyl processing, debacle. I think people are giving CDs a bit more of a renewed appraisal. So
yeah,
who knows?
Yeah. Hopefully, yes. I feel the same. Yeah, and also with Nima and I, since we also work with like films and theater pieces and dance pieces and projects with other medias, we also find music through that a lot as well. We also create a lot of different types of stuff for that, and the love for sound in general just is always existent. Even if we like watch a film, we talk about it. We're talking about the sound design, we're talking about the sound editing and like everything that goes with it. We're always having that conversation and looking for it in everywhere we can, let's say.
That's great.
Yeah.
Sarah, this has been so wonderful. Thank you for...
Same for me. Thank you. It was an absolutely lovely conversation.
I'm so glad. It's been such a pleasure to find out more about Horror Vacui, for one.
Thank you.
Which I shall reiterate is gorgeous. And then
Thanks.
Your 3 picks were quite a ride over the past few days. So I also listened to The Wasp Factory while washing up. So... Again, we had a common...
Oh my God, what is that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, we have a lot of washing up to do, so a lot of my listening does take place there by default, but still. Yeah, thank you once again. Really
so
appreciate
much.
it. Cheers.
Same.
And to everyone listening, see you next time. Goodbye.